Yeah, the throttle linkages on these things, I found I had to cut an inch in one side and cut an inch off the other side. And here you can see I've put an extra inch in for the foot throttle. The silly thing is this piece here, it's got a grub screw, or did have a grub screw, to lock the two halves together. It just doesn't work, and I found that if you tightened it up tight enough to hold, it was either too tight, or then within about half a day one bit would come loose. So you open the throttle a little bit and within a few seconds it shut itself down. My fix is just a bolt and a nut with the thread just drilled out, and that just locks the two halves together. It's fail safe, there's nothing to go wrong. Also, this linkage now goes over centre at full throttle, so it doesn't keep pulling the throttle back, so the throttle is nice and easy to move, but doesn't keep moving back all the time. This is the so-called parking brake. It's not safe because the snotches are too far apart, because if you adjust it up so one will work, the time you get to the afternoon you probably find it won't hold on the first snotch, and the second snotch is too far apart, you just cannot physically get it to the second snotch. And so I've made a fail-safe parking brake that's adjustable without any spanners and works several times more efficiently than this stupid thing. This is a handbrake which is several times more efficient on leverage, and if you do need to adjust it, you can adjust it without any spanners. You just turn that knob and that adjusts it for the strength, how hard you want it to work. And even a child could get that to work, and you can slide off all two wheels with it easily. Just put a little extension on. I'm not as agile as I used to be, and that just helps with my big feet just to get on. Also, to stop water getting in the brakes, this piece has been welded on that piece. The rubber gaiters, they perish overnight it seems, and almost from day one. Of course, with the hole in the back, as soon as any water runs in there, it goes straight into the disc brake unit, which this has done. Both of them were absolutely full of water. This one was just water damage. The other side, the seal was bad. It looked like somebody had towed the seal in with an ice pick. And this side, inside, the half shaft should be a tight fit into the housing, and you could lift it up and down about 0.5 millimetre, so the shafts aren't all machined correctly. Yeah, and we got here, this bit here. Originally it had a hand operated differential lock. It's not particularly convenient. I've always had tractors with foot operated diff locks, and this is just a simple thing I made up, and it works fine. And here the lift and lower control, you've got no idea of how fast it's going to drop, and you don't want to drop any heavy implement really quick. Some people use this piece, use the stop the oil going to the tipping ram, so you can lock that off. It's not a good idea because it also restricts the speed what they can lift. Inside here there's a sprung loaded plunger. Also you can alter the how far that comes in contact with the spool valve, and also you can alter the strength of the spring. So when you drop it, it goes down to a certain spot and that'll drop slowly, and if you want you can override it to drop quickly. With the double springs, so when it drops it will click out at the right height, and if you do need to drop it a bit further, you just push it that bit further, and you can drop it if you need to. With a solid thing, if it clicks out, if you adjust it to the click out a bit high, of course you can't override it. With this it doesn't matter, you can easily just adjust it with your fingers and away you go. The safety frame had been left folded down for all those 8 years it stood out, and this safety frame got filled with water and it got frosted, and you can see it split the safety frame. The stabiliser bars, I don't know why, all the holes were drilled the same centre, so if one hole wasn't quite right, none of the rest would be right either. So what I've done, I've altered the holes so they're in different spacing, so it doesn't matter where the bar is, you can always find one or whatever have you, which would be okay. Also, the mounting bracket isn't in line with the bottom of the link arm. It's now been moved an inch further back and about an inch down, so now when if you do make it so it's tight to stop any implement moving, when you lift it or lower it, it won't do any strain. It keeps in the same parallel motion. These lift arms, yeah, they're okay, but again the threading isn't particularly good. It's a bit loose. A fine thread isn't particularly good on something which carries a lot of weight. A coarse thread would actually be better. With a fine thread being quite loose, it's going to strip like the steering joints. Up the top here, when the lift arms go up, because of these are bent round, it actually tries to spew the fork out. So what I've done, I've heated these arms up and given them a slight twist. So if the lift arms have to go out towards the wheels when you've got the implement free floating, it doesn't jam the eyes up. I don't know what the PTO guard was on here, but they all seem to be missing. So whether they're weak or something, I made one up at weld mesh, and that is what you call really substantial. The support for the top link when it's out of use, that wasn't very strong and soon broke, so yeah, so it's a little bit stronger than what it was. Right, the seat, I've moved the seat back. The mounting bracket for the seat, because I've moved it back, I've had to cut a hole in the thing for the breather pipe, and also the filler pipe for the hydraulic oil is lifted and took round to the side. It's actually before it stuck out the back here, which I didn't particularly like. It's made it neater, and also the seat course will now come back a lot further than what it did, so it's a lot easier to drive. The PTO is okay in the high speed, but that's neutral, and in the low speed that wouldn't stay in gear, that were hardly touched, so had to take the dome headed nut off and put a countersink in, and also build up where the indent is, so it actually went further into gear, so it didn't keep jumping out of gear. So evidently it's not made right inside somewhere. The only thing that connects the foot control arm for the clutch is one single roll pin, and of course they eventually start to break. That's quite dangerous. If it actually broke when either you're in the end of a shed or something, I could see you going through the end of the shed. So they all seem to break. This one I've actually had the shaft out and actually cut a keyway in there, so it's the roll pin is not actually used. Also, there's 3 fingers in for the clutch with the thrust bearing actually push against. I had one crack. I suppose that was cracked when I had it. I found the clutch was very juddery, and so since I've actually had the one arm out and welded it up, it's a lot better. So there's a weakness inside on the clutch fingers. I don't know what return spring they had for the clutch, but I've got a coil spring which is very resilient and works very well. This is the sediment trap. I've had trouble. This was a new one, and very shortly afterwards the fuel I thought it actually started to lose power when I was cutting on low PTO speed, so it was almost full throttle, and found out the rubbers inside swell and the hole slowly close up. So if you can't, on here, when you prime it, that primes. If you try and prime it and you haven't got any resistance, that means your fuel isn't flowing through quick enough. So one of the common faults is the is the tap, the holes on the other side of the tap. Thing is, they don't supply the rubbers. You have to buy a complete other unit, so I just drilled the holes out a bit bigger, and I don't get any trouble at all now.